salute will be led by Mr. John Draymond.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you please stand, place your right hand over your heart, and salute our flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. With the month of June upon us already, this evening let us pray for the graduates of our community. May the path that they choose in life be righteous and lead them to their fullest potential. Grant them courage and patience as they weigh the choices before them. May their futures be bright and full of hope and faith. And as we come to mark National Flag Day next week, let us keep in our prayers, as we always do, those serving our great nation to preserve our way of life. Let us give thanks for this opportunity to meet and discuss significant issues within the city of Glendale. May this body deliberate with wisdom and integrity. Amen.
Can we have your report, Mr. Clark?
The agenda for June 2nd, 2009 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, May 28, 2009 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
What's next?
At 3 is presentation and appointments, and at 3A is the agenda preview for the meetings of June 9th, 2009.
Mr. Starbird.
Just to Bob McFall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Next week on June 9th, there are a number of meetings throughout the day. We'll start in all likelihood in the morning at 9:30. We'll have a special meeting. This will be another budget study session where the Director of Administrative Services will be facilitating a discussion on the citywide budget study session. Next, on the Housing Authority, there's actually 3 items next week. The first, the Interim Director of Community Development and Housing will be submitting a report on the development of an affordable home ownership project to be located at 624 through 630 Geneva Street. Next report will be from also the Interim Director, and this will be regarding the 2008 Winter Shelter Program. This is the year-end report. And then lastly, the Interim Director will be submitting a report on the Hamilton Court Family Transitional Housing Program, considering a motion for the Door of Hope to assume sponsorship of that program. On the Redevelopment Agency, there is a action item. This starts at 2:30 in the afternoon. The Director of Development Services will be submitting the quarterly arts report for the period of January 1st through March 31st, and will also be submitting a professional services agreement for design services related to the Alex Forecourt for the agency's consideration. At 6 o'clock that evening in the Glendale City Council, there are a number of items. The first, the Director of Human Resources will be submitting a proposed urgency ordinance amending the supplemental benefits ordinance for certain officers, subordinate officers, assistants, and other employees of the city. Next, the General Manager of Glendale Water and Power will be submitting a report regarding the approval of 8 new or expanded Glendale Water and Power public benefit programs. And then lastly, there will be 2 hearings. The first from the City Attorney regarding a discussion of amendment to interim ordinance number 5636. And this is establishing a moratorium on the installation of wireless facilities in residential areas, and to clarify certain terms of that ordinance. And then next and lastly, the Director of Administrative Services and Finance with the proposed budget for the City of Glendale. This will be the public hearing for the budget.
Okay, thank you. What's next?
3B is Service Award presentation to Battalion Chief Anthony Arlenas for 25 years.
All right, Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, it's my pleasure to present to you Battalion Chief Anthony Arianes for his 25-year pen, as we have 3 of our firefighters here tonight to receive their 25-year service pens to the community. But to tell you a little bit about Chief Arianes, he started back in our fire department in 1984, and it's May 14th to be exact, so we're about 25 years and 2 weeks. He grew up Let me look at my notes here. He currently resides in Camarillo, and his spouse is Tammy. He's been married for 22 years. He has 2 kids, Troy, 18, and Brooke, 14. He has his AS degree he received from Whittier College, and he promoted through the ranks over the years. Chief Arianas promoted to fire engineer. That's a position that drives the fire engines on the ladder trucks around the city in December of 1989. In fire captain in 1998 and battalion chief in 2006. He served in many different capacities throughout the course of his 25 years here in the department. He served in our Fire Prevention Bureau for a couple of years. That's an inspector, and he was stationed at our Environmental Management Center. He's been served in a role as a training captain for training new firefighter recruits here in the community, and just many, many other things. Chief Arianas enjoys his off-duty time, spending his time with his family and doing sporting activities. So it's my pleasure to present to you today Battalion Chief Anthony Arianas for his 25-year pen.
Very nice.
All right. My pleasure to present this Certificate 25 Years of Service Award presented to Anthony Arianas. This certificate is an expression of sincere appreciation for 25 years of loyal and faithful service. May the future bring you a full measure of those endowments which long service and devotion to duty so richly deserve. And a few goodies for you.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, City staff, and the community of Glendale, the City of Glendale has been very, very good to me. I've enjoyed my career immensely. I'm very thankful to the city for just a tremendous, more than I could have ever imagined. So thankful to my family for the support and helping me get to where I am today. In 25 years, that's a long time, but it's gone by so quick, so quick. And it's just a feeling of humbleness and thankfulness and gratitude. Thank you very, very much.
Keep talking. He's taking
Okay, it's okay. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Next.
So we have also another service award presentation, Fire Captain Joel Apollo, 25 years.
Once again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's my pleasure to present to you Captain Joel Apollo for his 25 years service pen to the community of Glendale. Captain Apollo is married to his wife Sarah, and he has 2 sons, Jacob 8 and Noah 6. He currently resides in Tustin. He also received his AS degree from Rio Hondo College, and Captain Apollo has promoted through the ranks over the years and just provided so many services to the department and the community. He promoted to fire engineer in October of 1988 and then to fire captain in May of 1997. And to just give you an idea of the role of a fire captain, it's a pretty important role. It's probably our most important role on the fire department, because when a fire engine goes out to any incident, this is the on-scene supervisor, whether it's a fire, whether it's a medical emergency, but this is the person that actually has to get engaged with the activities to make sure not only his crew is safe, but the community is in good hands. And I have to tell you that when Fire Captain Joel Apollo is on scene, you can always be sure the community is in good hands. He's also provided many services to the community. He's been very active in our Glendale Firefighters Association. He served as the vice president for many years. He was on the negotiating team, and he's a tough negotiator, and not just negotiating, but in the day-to-day fire station, he makes sure that his people take care of business, and that's what we need, and that's what we have here in the Glendale Fire Department. So I'm so proud to present Captain Joel Apollo his 25-year pen.
A 25-year service award presented to Joel Apollo. This certificate is an expression of sincere appreciation for 25 years of loyal and faithful service. May the future bring you a full measure of those endowments which long service and devotion to duty so richly deserve.
Hey, you didn't do one with Anthony, Mayor. You didn't do one with Anthony.
Yeah, come on up. Let's get one of these.
We'll get all three.
Come on, Anthony, back up.
Mr. Mayor, at 3D, we have service award presentation to Fire Engineer Russell Barrett, also for 25 years.
In our last 25-year recipient for tonight is Fire Engineer Russ Barrett. Russ was also in the class of 1984. How many members were in that class total? 16. These are the three that braved it out to come to council tonight to get their pen. But you know, we're pretty proud of Russ Barrett and all of his contributions. As a fire engineer, Russ's job is to drive the engines in the ladder truck around the city. But Russ is that right-hand person to the fire captain and making sure he's that go-between between the firefighters and the fire captain to make sure the daily duties get accomplished when things are going not exactly right. Russ is normally that person to go and talk to the supervisor. He's a tenured member of the organization, and he can do that. But he also brings a great attitude. If you've ever had a person in your work environment that everyone is happy to be around and happy to work with, that's Russ Barrett, and he's contributed in so many ways. And one example is he's been one of our driving instructors here in the Glendale Fire Department for many, many years. In order for us firefighters to get licensed by the DMV, we have done our own in-house training in driving our fire engines and fire ladder trucks to get our Class B driver's licenses. And Russ is a very patient man, and because some of us going up through the ranks have taken a great deal of time to learn that. Russ is married to his wife Justine in 19 years. He has 4 kids, Russell, Demi, Davis, and McCade. And so that probably helped build his patience over the years. I know it's helped mine. But one of the things I can say is I probably spent more time with Russ and his family off the job, being a part of our Glendale Fire Department softball team for many, many years. And it's just a place where we really get to know each other and our families, and we really become close and connected. And Russ is an integral part of that, just making every new firefighter here in the organization feel welcome. And when I came here in 1989 and 1990, Russ was one of the first people that invited me to do something off the job. But that's who he is. He makes you feel at home, and he makes you feel welcome. And that's what our fire department family does for you. So I'm proud to present Russ Barrett his 25-year pen.
Congratulations. 25-year service award to Russell Barrett. The certificate is an expression of sincere appreciation for 25 years of loyal and faithful service. May the future bring you a full measure of those endowments which long service and devotion to duty so richly deserve. Congratulations. Excellent person, I agree.
Should we go? Can we get the middle in the middle? Yeah, we'll put him in the middle.
So short,
You're the highest ranking guy here.
2 black shirts on the outside.
I don't like those. Too short.
All right, so
Thank you.
what's next?
Next on the agenda is introduction of code enforcement attorney.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's my pleasure to formally introduce you tonight to our new code enforcement attorney, Yvette Nukian. I'm just going to give you about a 60-second rundown of her background and note that she did start with us April 27th, so she is still in the transition period, but she's been busy filing a number of criminal complaints already, even though she's in the what we'll call the training or transition mode. A little bit about Yvette's background. She is a undergraduate from UCLA. in English. She has a, I don't notice the, I'm already noticing to my right.
We've had this discussion already.
Many times, probably. She also has her law degree from UCLA, where she was on the law review. Comes to us from one of the largest law firms in the world. She has a background of litigation. Started as a lawyer and had her JD in 2001. Certainly an individual who has demonstrated to us to be very confident, intelligent, and capable. Particularly in light of the council's direction to ensure that code enforcement is given a new level of scrutiny within the community. Some may call it aggressive code enforcement, and others just look at it as really starting to ratchet up code enforcement to ensure that the quality of life for the residents of this community is maintained and enhanced. And we believe Yvette is capable of performing in that function, and we really look forward to her fully assimilating into that role. So I just wanted to formally introduce her to you and the public this evening, and I don't know if she has any words or if you do, but she is here for her introduction tonight.
Thank you so much, Scott. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and City staff. I just want to say briefly, I've been here for 6 weeks, and I'm enjoying every minute of it, and it's an honor and a privilege to serve the city. I grew up here for most of my childhood, and I really do love the city, and it really is an honor and a privilege to be working here. And I hope that I can be the best code enforcement attorney that I can be and serve the city well. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Mr. Weaver.
She also went to that other high school, at Glendale Hoover High.
Yes.
And, okay. And so, you know, she lives in Glendale, too. So she knows the city pretty well.
Yes.
And you have a hard job ahead of you, so welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Next, please.
Next is City Council and staff comments.
Mr. Drainey.
I have a few, Mr. Mayor. The first is I'm proud to remind the public about the 26th Annual Montrose Arts and Crafts Festival, which is this weekend. It is Saturday and Sunday, the 6th and 7th of June, Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the Montrose Shopping Park Association. This is the largest public event in the city of Glendale, with more than 400 vendors, artists, craftsmen, art vendors, musicians, food booths. There's a kids zone with a petting zoo and pony rides and inflatables, and there's a children's gymnasium, and they have live jazz and international food court, and their harvest market, which is a certified California farmers market, also during the event. The event runs along Honolulu Avenue for about 4 blocks. Terrific event, great way to spend the weekend, and there's about 30,000 people that annually turn out for this event. And the weather looks like it's going to be terrific in the mid-70s, so it should be fun. Come on out. We last year saw a lot of city staff for the very first time ever, so once in 26 years isn't bad. It's the 3rd largest crafts fair in the state of California, and it's the 3rd oldest also. And my colleague to the left, Mr. Weaver, I can remember him back in the very first days of this event, tromping around and hosting in the information booth and so on. So I know he knows this event very well, and I've seen all of my colleagues, including my newest colleague, there in the past. So we hope we see you again this weekend. Yes, sir.
Right, could I add one thing to it? I kid you not. This is where you go to buy unusual Christmas gifts now.
That's true.
You'll see things up there that you won't see in any store anywhere. So take your wallet, buy your Christmas gifts early, and put them away.
It's a good idea. And also, there's all of the stores in the Montrose Shopping Park, more than 200 unique stores, mom and pop stores you won't find in a mall. So a lot of fun up there. That was one item, Mr. Mayor. Second is, well, the only other comment is our Glendale History Challenge.
And did I get it right?
You didn't, and neither did you,
It's
Mr.
2
Mayor.
for 2.
However, let me tell you that you're in good company because no one got it right.
That was not.
So let us see that photo again, if you would, please.
That's not the building across.
No,
the
this
hotel?
building does not exist. So I'm going to give you a couple of clues and see if anybody can. This is for a $25 gift certificate to. You don't get to participate, Mr. Weaver.
I grew up here. I should know the building.
$25 gift certificate to Jack's Bar and Grill, and for being able to name the locale and the time period. The building no longer exists. I'll give you that hint. The building in height, without the tower, was as tall as the Alex Theater spire alone. So a very tall building, and the street you're looking at is Brand Boulevard on the frontage, and the side street is California Avenue. And those are good hints. I'll tell you also it's a hotel. All right. Those are the hints. So anyone who wishes to participate, you'll call this number. If we could see the other slide. There you go. Call Chuck Wyke at 818-548-2042, or you can email him at the city at cwyke, W-I-K-E, at ci.glendale.ca.us, but you have to wait till the end of the council meeting to do it. And we will notify you if you're the winner. We've had several winners along the way. This is our third slide, so we'll see if with the hints somebody can come up with the answer.
I already said the wrong answer, so.
That's true. I have colleagues that keep whispering to me, it's the hotel across the street. It's not. This building doesn't exist anymore. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Not only that, I went on to add about the
blimp mast.
The blimp mast, and that's a fact. Mr. Najarian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to place on the agenda for next meeting the ratification of the nomination for the DRB positions that I have. I have 2 that are open. For DRB 1, I would like to nominate Art Simonian, and for DRB 2, Mike Giragos. And I do have one other item. We held a meeting on the 710 technical feasibility study on I think it was last Thursday. The engineers from Caltrans came out, and lo and behold, the engineers tell us that it is possible to build a 5-mile tunnel through 2 earthquake faults 300 feet below the ground. I was criticized, and actually opponents to the tunnel were criticized for not waiting until the EIR comes out. And to those individuals who levy such criticism, I say it's clear that those in support of the 710 tunnel have been riding their horse up and down town saying how great it is, and no one is leveling criticism of them for holding their enthusiasm and support until the EIR is done. So I think the people who would like to weigh in against the tunnel should not be intimidated by any other elected official, Caltrans director, or anyone else. You are certainly well within your rights to organize, to continue to learn about the facts, and to make your positions be known. And I will support you in any way possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman.
Thank you. Just a few items. First, I would like to announce my nominations for the DRB appointments a week from this Tuesday, so 2 weeks from tonight. And on that note, yesterday it was my pleasure to attend an event that was hosted by the Commission for the Status of Women called Women at the Table. That was an event to talk about being on boards and commissions or holding elected office in the city of Glendale. It was very well attended by people who are interested in participating, and also by other elected representatives, by people who are currently serving on boards and commissions. If you didn't catch it last night at 7 o'clock on GTV6, it will be rerun, so if you check the schedule, you'll have an opportunity to see it. And I recommend that anybody, male or female, who is at all inclined or interested or intrigued by the idea of getting more involved with your community by serving on a board and commission, to watch the program. It's an excellent presentation and introduction to the whole process of being more civically involved. And it was a really well-organized event, so I thank the Commission for the Status of Women for all of their hard work to bring that to the community. And thirdly, last week it was also my pleasure to join Mayor Quintero at the conference for the League of Cities. It was a really interesting conference, very educational, extremely valuable to me, and I think to everybody who attended. I had the opportunity to attend seminars given by elected officials and by experts on a whole range of topics, including city finance, budgeting, city management, ways of helping a city reduce its environmental footprint, and many other topics. It also gave me an opportunity to meet with other elected representatives from cities all across the state. And so it was very interesting to be able to compare notes and talk about the processes that they're going through right now and the challenges that their cities are facing and what their goals are and their strategies. So it was a very, I think, important event, and I plan to be very involved with the League of Cities through my next 4 years.
Okay, thank you. I have a number of items. I agree. I couldn't attend this year, but the past Commission on the Status of Women, I thought it was so good that at the time I remember telling them I think they should do it for, every maybe twice a year. Very good turnout. It sort of explains to people how you go about applying for and serving on the board, but they did a very good job. My nominations for the DRB opening, two existing members. For DRB 1, Ivan Insua, who's currently serving, and for DRB 2, Alan Malikian. The League of Cities, as usual, had lots of excellent seminars. One of them was on renewable energy and on metering and so forth, and I've been talking to the execs at Glendale Water and Power with my newfound knowledge. Now I'm really dangerous. But anyway, it's just amazing with these meters, these so-called smart meters, and they are smart, what they're going to be able to do in terms of helping, number one, the customer, and number two, the city, helping us to save energy, both water and electrical energy. And I'm very much looking forward to, in the next few weeks, we'll be hearing from GWP, but it's going to be a big, big benefit to both the consumer and and to the city. And then the next seminar that made a major impression on me was a seminar pertaining to finance, municipal finances, and so forth. And I told Mr. Starbird earlier, it was just interesting how so many cities in this state, including very, let's call them upper middle class, if not wealthy cities, that are having major issues with their budget. So I think, quite frankly, we're in pretty good shape. It was just sort of a straw poll as you talk to the different elected officials from the state of California, but we're in much better shape than some of the other cities in the state. That's for sure. Tomorrow, June the 3rd, Relay for Life is going to have their kickoff reception. It starts at 6 p.m., and it'll be held at the Excelsior Club Room at the Americana, which is across the street from Cafe Primo. So Relay for Life, those of you that want to volunteer and want to participate in that very important organization, you can show up tomorrow, Wednesday, June the 3rd, at the Excelsior Club at the Americana and sign up and listen to the presentations. And then finally, a very, very sad note. I want to adjourn the meeting in honor of Dr. Artine Sagarian, a very well-known and very respected doctor here in the city of Glendale. He was born in Beirut in 1929. He immigrated to Glendale in 1980, and he lived here for close to 30 years. Married to Adrienne, his wife. He has 3 children, Jonathan, Lily, and David, all of whom are very active in Glendale civic life, and 4 grandchildren. He received his MD degree in medicine at the American University of Beirut. He then received a master's in philosophy in 1977, and he was very much a philosopher for those of us that knew him, also from the American University of Beirut. Here in the United States, he received a master's of science in healthcare administration at the University of Laverne. He was a very active community member. He was a founding editor of Masis Weekly, an editor of the Armenian Medical Society Journal, former president of the Armenian Writers Association. He wrote a book on philosophy and hundreds of articles in local newspapers on politics, culture, health, and society in general. He was a regular lecturer as well as a host and producer of a television show. His service and interment will be this Thursday, June the 4th, at Forest Lawn in Burbank in the Old North Church. He was just a wonderful, wonderful person. I saw him, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and he was in perfect health. It was an untimely death, very energetic person, and boy, he's going to be missed by a lot of people. Just a wonderful, wonderful person. Any staff comments? Mr. McFall.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I'd like to announce a very special family event that happens this Friday, June 5th. This is the 2009 Student Showcase. The third year the showcase has happened. It is a lot of fun. The City of Glendale, the Glendale Unified School District, and the Glendale Arts have all joined together every year now for 3 years to showcase talent, very special performing arts talent from out of the Glendale Unified School District for grades K through 12. It's a full evening of remarkable performances that take place. Glendale Realtors underwrites the production. It is a fundraiser for the Glendale Educational Foundation, and through a lot of cooperation from the city and the school district and parents and students to put this on. Tickets are available at the Alex Theater. They're $10, although there are, of course, reserved orchestra seats that are available through the foundation for $50. If anybody would like any additional information, I think we have some notation up on the board that the Alex can be contacted for ticket information or anything else that anybody would like to find out about this very fine performance.
Mr. Freeman.
I am so sorry to come back again, Mr. Mayor. I've neglected to ask a question. Some time ago, I had brought forward to city staff about a house on in the Verdugo Woodlands on Califia. I can't remember the pronunciation of the street. This was a construction project that has never been finished, with debris in the yard continually. This is the swimming pool that was drained, and they found a dead deer in the pool. And this is year-round porta potties on the sidewalk in the front and so on. And I have received more phone calls from the resident next door, literally begging some kind of assistance from the city, not only with the mess and the status of the project, but also the fact that they contend that the project was not built according to the approved design from the DRB. And whether that is true or not, I don't know, and I don't purport to know. But the other issues seem fairly clear. In any case, I'd like to get some kind of an update for the council, even if it's just a written update, to let us know where we are with this.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Draymond, we'll do that. We've had more than one meeting on that property, so I'm surprised that the neighbors aren't seeing some result of that.
They may have seen some.
Yeah,
and I say I've received more context from them.
Okay. We'll get you a status report.
Thank you.
All right, what's next?
Next is the consent calendar, and the following are routine and may be acted upon one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before the motion is proposed.
Mr. Draymond. I'm sorry, Mr. Weaver.
He's dragging mine. I'd like to move the consent calendar at 5.
You Glendale natives all look alike.
Do we?
Mr.
Boy, would I like to make a comment. However,
Council members Raymond,
yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
Next is oral communications, or this would be the portion for oral communications.
Okay, for announcements, I have 3 cards. Leon Mayer, followed by Al Hoffman.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero, members of the council, staff. My name is Leon Mayer. I'm here from the Glendale Library and the Friends of the Library. And at the outset, I want to remind everybody that if you and your family have taken advantage of the Glendale Library's tremendous facility, all their sub-libraries, branch libraries, you should consider joining the Friends of the Library. If you see these newsletters in the second last page, you'll see how you can join. $10 for a student or senior, $20 for individual, and $40 for a family. You should support your library through the Friends of the Library. And I always have these, and you can find them any place at the branch libraries, the central libraries, or downstairs. I'd like to, first of all, tell you we had a very interesting program Monday night. It's unusual to do it on Monday night, but you're going to read someday, not too distant future, that Mark Arax and Eris Janigian are going to become screenwriters. They're going to become famous, and they started here in Glendale via Fresno. And I told you it was not just an Armenian event, it was an all-Glendale, all-American event, and it was so. Anybody who went there will tell you that is true. Now, as far as future events, we have a summer reading program. This is sponsored both by the Friends of the Library, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and Chivas USA. That's a soccer league. In fact, they're going to have one of the stars of the soccer league at the Pacific Park Library. And this is for children up to age 8. Families, you can go to any branch library, the central library, to sign up. And all you have to do is agree to read 8 books, and then choose a prize book to take home. And it's for all ages through the 8th grade. And I already told you the co-sponsors. Now, reading 8 books, nobody has time for that because we're watching TV, aren't we? Other than the city council meetings. Well, this is an important program for our children, and please consider going to any branch library. Again, we have flyers. You can find them any place. I'll distribute them on my way out. And we have a real find for our next program, but I'm going to make a special invitation to USC graduates because the program is about Frank Gehry. He's a graduate of 1954. That's 2 years after me. And the person who's written the Conversations with Frank Gehry, the book, is also she's on the staff at USC. Her name is Barbara Eisenberg, and I'll read more about this next time I come here, but it's a tremendous program. It's about an architect who's worldwide known. For all over the world, he's done architecture, and I'll tell you more about it next Tuesday.
What is going to be the date of that?
That will be on the 18th of June,
18th.
Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Al Hoffman, followed by Sharon Wiseman.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero and council members and staff. Al Hoffman, resident of Glendale. I've been, on behalf of the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council, a member of the Verdugo Hills Golf Course Committee. And we've been meeting for, several years since the whole problem came up. And the draft EIR is now out and available. And the reason I'm here this evening is to stress to the staff and to everybody at home and everywhere to please get a copy. You can contact me. We can get copies for if you don't have them. They are on the internet. We can get that to you. I'll email that out, especially the planning department. We feel the impacts are going to be really tremendous for traffic and the congestion up on Lowell, and which is right on our city border. My passion is the water reclamation that golf course provides, and it feeds actually into the aquifer that's a main feeder for the Crescenta Valley Water District. And it's going to be really critical that we save that golf course to reclaim the water. Last evening, GWP was, Glenn Steiger was at our meeting talking about 25% of our water is pumped water, and it's important that we save that water. And that golf course is really a good, big contributor. And I don't know if Richard Toyon, did he make it this evening? The Voice was going to present that. Richard is really putting together a big deal on the water and all of the impacts, the geological impacts and all that. So anyhow, we want to stress for you to get the EIR, especially the planning department and all of you that would do it. It's a big thing, but there are certain sections that all of you could pick out and that you might find near and dear to your heart. And we need to really do a good job, because we can stop this thing if we do a good job on the EIR. And Sharon Weissman, she is going to report. I got her on the committee as far as Far North Glendale, the new homeowners association, because they're right, the neighbors to it. So she'd like to speak to the group too. Thank you.
Okay, Sharon Weissman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Quintero, council members. As you just heard, the draft environmental impact report for the 229-home project to replace the Verdugo Hills Golf Course has now been released. I'm a resident of Glendale near the location of this property and represent the Far North Glendale homeowners on the Verdugo Hills Golf Course Committee. And I want to thank the council for directing the planning staff to prepare a comprehensive letter in response to the notice of preparation for this project last January. I believe that helped improve the draft EIR. I hope this slightly different council will similarly instruct staff to respond to the draft EIR. Although this project is complex and affects not only Sunland Tahunga where it exists, but also Glendale, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, and the unincorporated portions of La Crescenta and Montrose. The comment period is only 60 days and ends on July 20th. I'm aware of multiple requests to extend the comment period to a total of 90 days, but that may not occur. We are particularly concerned about the impacts on Glendale residents in the areas of traffic, recreation, hydrology and water quality, as Al Hoffman mentioned, and utilities and service systems, including wastewater, water supply, and solid waste. We ask that the professionals in the Glendale Planning Department scrutinize the document, the draft EIR, to be sure all impacts have been adequately addressed. And thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we'll respond at the end of oral communications. What's next?
Next, at 7, under adoption of ordinances, Mr. Mayor and Council, at 7A is ordinance providing for certain officers, subordinate officers, assistants, deputies, clerks, and employees of the City of Glendale and for their compensation. GMA, that's Glendale Management Association. This was offered on May 26, 2009 by Council Member Weaver.
Mr. Mayor, move 7A.
Okay, do we have any speakers?
Second.
Okay, no comments. Roll call, please.
Council Members Raymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero?
Yes. Next, please.
At 7B is an ordinance providing for certain officers, subordinate officers, assistants, deputies, clerks, and employees of the City of Glendale and for their compensation. Glendale City Employees Association, GCEA. This was also offered on May 26, 2009 by Councilmember Weaver.
Mayor, move 7B.
Second.
Okay, I don't have any speaker cards. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Raymond?
Yes.
Friedman.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
8 under action items. 8A is Fire Chief regarding appropriation of funds for strategic plan. 8A1 is a resolution appropriating $50,000.
All right. I'd actually like to have the chief come up and give the public an idea of what this is about.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. What this is about is putting an RFP out to bring in an outside company to help us prepare a strategic plan for the fire department. The way we would be appropriating these funds is from our current year's salary savings, so there would not be an additional cost to the budget. It's from our salary savings. But I think now, during the times that we're in, it's very important for us to take a very strategic look at our operations to make sure that we're moving in a way that just makes sense in the environment, and make sure we're covering all of our bases and hitting in areas that we need to hit in. We'd like to do a few different things. We'd like to get the input of the other city divisions to make sure the fire department's meeting the needs, our members of the organization, but most importantly, we want to hear from the community and what they would like to see in their fire department, and we would like to put all this together in the form of a 5-year strategic plan, and it will give us guidelines on a way to strategically move into the future.
Comments?
Motion. Move 8A1.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Draymond.
Yes.
Friedman.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
8B is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding benchmark customer satisfaction survey. Glendale residential customers assess Glendale Water and Power's water service. Presentation by Dave Bregman and RKS Research and Consulting. B1 is a motion to note and file the report.
Mr. Steiger.
Mayor Quintero, members of the Glendale City Council. Periodically, GWP commissions a customer survey in conjunction with the California Municipal Utilities Association. And generally we do this once or twice a year to survey in general to find out the various levels of satisfaction or various issues with various sectors of our customer base, residential, commercial, industrial, and we will survey either electric or water users or both. We have recently participated in a survey through RKS Research and Consulting, through the CMUA, statewide, and we have asked that an oversample be performed, an oversample meaning that we specifically sample Glendale customers for a specific reason. We've asked that a survey be done to gauge value, satisfaction, and other issues associated with our water customers. So tonight, we have the results of that. This was a very recent study. And we've asked David Reichman from RKS Research and Consulting, the survey, the people that actually consulted the survey, conducted the survey, to come and give an overview of what was found both in the statewide survey and the specific oversample relating directly to Glendale water customers. So I'd like to introduce David Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and members of the staff. Now I have to figure out how to... Yeah. That's it. Okay. Great. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to quickly run through these results. As I said, this survey was very recently done. The basic goal of the project was really very straightforward. It was to obtain benchmark readings of GWP of Glendale residential customers and their satisfaction towards GWP as a water provider. We also, the way we did it really, and the way to understand it, is that there are two separate surveys we're talking about. The first one was the California Municipal Utilities Statewide Residential Water Customer Satisfaction Survey. That was a statewide effort. consisted of about 500 telephone interviews, 300 in Southern California, 200 in Northern California, and together, when we asked these customers, who is your water provider, 112 separate water utilities came up. So that's really the benchmark survey, which was done in January of this year. The second survey, which is the one we're going to be paying attention to right now, is the GWP oversample. 100 telephone interviews. We got this from a list the GWP provided us, randomly selected. GWP was identified as the sponsor. It was the question. These were telephone interviews. I want to stress that. Questionnaire was identical with the statewide survey. So the questions asked here were identical to the ones done in statewide. And this survey that I'm going to be describing was very recent, April 28th to May 5th. So the results are less than a month old, almost real time. The questions focused on water issues, but it's very hard to ask a customer who also buys electricity from the utility to block out the electric relationship. So they have a relationship with GWP, so really other opinions tended to blend in. And I'm just going to run through a few results. One question was overall satisfaction. It's a question we ask, how satisfied are you on an overall basis with your water provider? Statewide, 70% of residential customers said they're very satisfied with their provider. Here in Glendale, it's 73%, and statistically that's about the same number. There's really no difference between those two. We also asked a couple of questions about ease of doing business with the utility, and statewide, two-thirds, or 67%, said that their water utility did an excellent job in terms of being easy to do business with. Here in Glendale, it's a higher 81%. And that little mark there means that it's statistically significant. The 81 is a significant difference from the 67%. We asked, have you seen, heard, or read any advertising or communications in the past year? 65%, that's a huge number. I think that's one of the largest in any of the oversamples that we've seen. 65% here in Glendale said yes, and that's more than twice the number statewide who said yes, they've seen or heard or read advertising. And what's more, when we said among those who actually recall the advertising, what's the major message that comes out? Here in Glendale, 57% say it's a water conservation message, and that compares to about 30% statewide who volunteered the same thing. Other mentions were energy conservation, water restrictions, price changes, and so forth. We also asked some questions about the performance of their water utility. How would you rate the utility in keeping the water supply safe from terror? Now, these are averages or means, not percentages. So 8.8 is a higher score. It's on a 0 to 10 scale, and this is the average score, so it's 8.8 in Glendale versus 8.3 statewide. Communicating effectively, 8.6 versus 8.1. Concern for the environment, 8.5 versus 7.8. Being honest in dealing with customers, 8.4 versus 8.2. Management's performance in running the utility, 8.3 versus 7.9. So some of these are statistically significant, but virtually all of them are ahead of the statewide score benchmark. How much trust do your customers have in their utility? Statewide, 69% say they have a great deal of trust. Here in Glendale, three-quarters, 75% said they have a great deal of trust in their utility. When you ask customers to assess the objective qualities of water, it's really the same here as it is elsewhere in terms of safety, taste, smell, clarity, absence of minerals. It's really objectively, your customers here are saying that they see the water as virtually the same as customers statewide. When we ask customers about the water supply situation in their area at present, 64% of your customers here in Glendale say that they're in a drought. 19% say it's severe, and 45% believe it's moderate. But 64% of residential customers in Glendale believe there's a drought. Some don't, but most do. And that compares with 51%, a bare majority, statewide. 14% a severe drought, 37% a mild drought. But we asked the next question, have you taken part in your utilities programs, water conservation programs offered by your utility? Even though more of your customers believe there's a drought, the same number, 21% here, 19% statewide, have actually taken part in their water utilities conservation programs. We asked about the price customers pay for utility services. 36% of your customers here and 36% statewide call the price high for water. In terms of sewer, 27 and 32% respectively, and in terms of electricity, 42% here, 43% of customers who are also buying electricity from their water provider or from the utility call the prices high. And the last data slide is when we ask about value. 41% of your customers here, but 53% statewide, agree strongly with the statement, when I pay my utility bill, I always feel that I get my money's worth. In terms of utility works hard to keep prices low, 32% here, 37% agree strongly with that. And finally, utility service is an excellent or a good value. It's 44% here or 54% statewide. So the numbers for GWP are lower than the statewide benchmarks. Summarizing, customer satisfaction here in Glendale is very respectable. The utility is seen as being easy to do business with. Their performance is outstanding on advertising and communications. GWP outperforms statewide average on virtually all image dimensions. Customers do have a high level of trust in GWP. Customers here seem to be more in tune with the water supply situation than statewide. Customers, however, here are no more likely to participate in utility water conservation programs. Rate criticism tends to be relatively muted, although it's still there to some extent. And there is room for improvement in terms of the perceptions of value. And finally, the last, and the bottom line, we believe that this survey is a good report card, a very good report card for GWP. And just in terms of some recommendations, we recommended to Glenn and the staff that they get the word out to employees, because GWP is viewed as performing well in a very, very challenging environment. We recommend that GWP use its impressive communication capabilities to educate customers about the nature of the drought, attract customers to participate, communicate a value message, and reinforce GWP's positive image in terms of being easy to do business with, its concern for the environment, and that the high trust ratings are justified, and recognize that GWP is not viewed as being a high-priced utility. There's always going to be rate criticism, and there is, but it's not viewed as being, we've seen rate criticism as, in terms of being a high-priced utility, and GWP is not there right now. So basically, that's what we found in our survey, and we appreciate the opportunity to present it. Thank you.
Comments? I have one speaker card, Herbert Milano.
Mayor Quintero, members of the City Council, my name is Herbert Milano. Based on this survey, it was a survey done of all Glendale Water and Power customers, which means that electrical and water customers were surveyed. And of course, we all know by now that 62% of those customers do not get a water bill because they live in multifamily housing. So it was a biased sample to begin with. The sample size is only 100 out of 33,000 potential customers for the water department. I don't know if a sample of that small size is actually truly relevant. There is a focus on water issues again, but 62% of these customers do not get a water bill. So therefore, the information concerning the overall satisfaction has to be incredibly inaccurate. The ease of doing business with Glendale, 81% says it's easy to do business with regard to water. But 62% of the customers don't do any business or send any payments. There's a major message here that 57% of the people have knowledge of water conservation. That means that 43% of the people out there are not, even though we are in the second year of the water crisis. That means that our message has been incredibly ineffective. The performance is safe from terror, 8.8 point out of 10. It's amazing to actually get this particular information on how in the world people will actually come out with any type of response with regard to this. The 75% again have trust in the department, but again, the preponderance of these customers do not have any business or make any payments or have any invoices or check those invoices out with regard to activities having to do with water usage. The 64% believe we have a drought. That means 36% of the people out there don't believe we have a drought. I think that's a significant problem. In the second year of a crisis, 36% of the people don't believe we have a drought situation. I think it's terrible. And how many have taken part? 79% have not taken part. That's also terrible. So it means that whatever methods or policies we established back 2 years ago, they aren't working. The price, 36% say the price is high. Well, 32% of the people are the ones, 38% are the ones who actually pay. So 38% of the customers are the ones who really pay the bill, 36% say the price is high. Okay, 27% say the sewer price is high. Well, 36% of those customers pay sewer directly. My bottom line is that based on the sample size, based on the fact there was no control questions, based on the fact that there is no issues with regard to major issues, the communication, speaking in Armenian, speaking in Korean, what controls were there, I don't think that we can make safely any of these conclusions with regard to this survey. Thank you very much.
Okay, any comments? Need a motion, a note and file?
I'll make a motion.
Excuse me, did they want to respond?
Yeah, I would. To give him the opportunity.
Yeah.
I would like to just correct one issue in that all questions were asked of water customers that do receive water bills. So that is how we conducted the survey. Plus, all customers, regardless of whether they get a water bill or not, do get an electric bill. So the communication, the satisfaction piece is with GWP regardless. As Mr. Reichman mentioned up front, that even though we targeted questions towards water, our customers view GWP as water and power. So we get that overlap.
Mr. Najarian.
I'd just like to state that in light of the drought situation, Mr. Milano sure is throwing a lot of cold water on this report. So I'll second the motion.
I'll make it first. I'll move 8B1.
And a second. Roll call.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please. Thank you.
At 8C is City Attorney regarding development of a national broadband plan by the Federal Communications Commission and its call for comments. At C1 is a motion directing staff.
Mr. Starburn.
Go to Chris Sansoni for the staff report. Chris.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero, members of the council. As you may know, the Federal Communications Commission has recently released a notice of inquiry seeking comments by June 8th of this year from the public and other government agencies with regard to the FCC's development of the National Broadband Plan. The plan is part of the Stimulus Act of 2009, wherein the FCC has been tasked with the responsibility of submitting a plan to Congress by February 17th of next year. The goal of this National Broadband Plan is to ensure that all people in the U.S. have access to high-speed broadband capability, and the FCC is charged with establishing benchmarks to reach that goal. At a starting point, according to FCC Commissioner Jonathan Adelstein, is to make the FCC's plan more than just words. We must start by upgrading our communications infrastructure in every corner of this country, and that includes Glendale. Among the approximately 109 separate requests for comments, the FCC is seeking comments as to how the FCC could develop a plan for the build-out of high-speed broadband infrastructure, access to poles, public rights-of-way, and tower siting. And as you are aware, those are issues of great concern to the City of Glendale and to the residents of Glendale. In the Telecommunications Act, Congress reserved for local jurisdictions the right to regulate the placement, construction, and modification of wireless facilities, provided that such regulations do not attempt to regulate radio frequency emissions, do not unreasonably discriminate among providers of functionally equivalent services, and do not prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of wireless services. This congressional assignment of responsibility to local jurisdictions leaves the FCC with little or no involvement in appeals of decisions made by local zoning authorities. One of the most pressing concerns for the city regarding cellular antennas is the increasing threat by the telecommunications carriers who are seeking changes in the law to erode the rights that cities have to govern the local public right-of-way and to regulate the zoning in private properties. Notwithstanding the fact that the FCC does not have jurisdiction to override the city's discretion in this regard, the telecommunications industry continues to press the FCC for greater restrictions to local authority. And this is exemplified both by the vast number of lawsuits that have been challenging local zoning powers and local zoning decisions, but also in the recent petition to the FCC made by a consortium of telecommunications operators asking the FCC to preempt local cell antenna zoning by proposing, among other things, to implement a 45-day and a 75-day shot clock approach for municipalities to act on zoning approvals for cellular towers. The applications for towers would automatically be deemed granted if those deadlines were not met. We believe that the FCC doesn't have the authority to change the law in that respect. But given the increasing pressure, we recommend that the city submit comments to the FCC, essentially to remind the FCC that during the development of the National Broadband Plan, that it has limited jurisdiction in the area of antenna siting and regulation of public rights-of-way. And we should also seek the assurances that nothing in the National Broadband Plan should be used to undercut local government's authority and with respect to zoning. This plan should not become a vehicle whereby the local jurisdictions are restricted from exercising the rights granted by Congress. Now, motion has been attached to your packet that if the council desires, would either direct staff to provide comments to the FCC or direct staff to prepare a letter for the mayor's signature providing comments to the FCC. Also, in a related matter, we want to bring to your attention that the local interest group in antennas and antenna siting, they call themselves Go Act, has asked council to consider advocating for a change in the law at the congressional level to give local jurisdictions the authority to favor less intrusive and more efficient technologies and to allow cities to regulate the placement of cellular antennas on the basis of RF emission safety. For example, and other jurisdictions have taken these steps. As Go Act has informed us, both the County of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Unified School District have passed motions advocating for changes at the congressional level, and also they will be submitting comments to the FCC consistent with the motion that we have before you. And that really concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer questions for you. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Howard?
Just a quick add to Ms. Ansoni's thorough presentation, that while the motion before you is focused on comments to the FCC, the council may want to provide us with direction on either coming back with a resolution similar to the motion and the recitals adopted by the Board of Supervisors today, and or the motion adopted by the Los Angeles Unified School District last week, specifically directed to Congress, asking them to look at changing the Federal Telecommunications Act to address the issue of radio frequency emissions and also the preemption, or essentially, it's supremacy, so preemption on our ability to regulate the siting of those towers and to try to get some authority back and start that ball rolling. It looks, the supervisors have done it, the school district has done it, other jurisdictions look like they're going to be moving down that path. I believe we should be looking at that as well.
Okay, well, for myself, I'd definitely like to join L.A. County and the school district in moving in that direction. Mr. Weaver.
I was going to follow on to that. We have two other resolutions already, correct? The district and the Board of Supervisors. Will you be doing something of a blend to get the strongest combination of the two? Thoughts on it?
What we would be doing, Mr. Mayor, members of council, at least with regard to that, because that technically is not before you today, this is really the comments, we'll bring you that back next week with a draft resolution for your consideration.
Ms. Friedman.
What would be the appropriateness of also asking our lobbyists in Washington to lobby on behalf of this?
Completely appropriate. In fact, that's one of the provisions of the motion adopted by the Board of Supervisors today, is to ask their legislative advocates.
That's something that I would certainly support.
We can certainly include that within a draft resolution for your consideration next week.
The only other, sorry.
Mr. Najarian.
I would support that, mirroring the language that the Board of Supervisors passed. But I would also recommend that we send our comments directly to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and let the White House also be aware of what it is, to the extent they have influence on the FCC and the administrative procedures. I don't know if they're appointees of the president, the commissioners, or but in any event, let them know. And I think you should deliver it personally, Mr. Mayor, and or at least sign it personally.
In a bad mood.
Sorry, just one other question. If we do comments to the FCC, would it be appropriate to also sort of CC our congressional representatives?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, when we've opposed either legislation or rulemaking through a subordinate body like the FCC or other commission, we've done that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sansoni. I have one card. Al Hoffman.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask one thing.
Yeah, Mr.
I
Weaver.
think we're all in agreement of doing it, but we want staff on it, or we want your signature on it? I don't care. I'm just trying to find out.
I think it should have the elected
The mayor?
officials.
Okay.
It carries more weight.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sansoni. Mr. Hoffman. Al Hoffman, followed by Margaret Hammond.
Councilman Quintero, council members and staff, Al Hoffman. Again, this is a Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council issue. We have been supporting the northwest portion of our group, and Elisa Calfian is here this evening. She may be able to shed some more light on it. I thought that the president of the Coordinating Council was going to be here this evening to speak to this, because we, again, supported the effort last evening at our meeting, and I believe Margaret will speak to that. I think it's very important that we draft this resolution, as Attorney Scott Howard said. I think this is important. It's a really important issue. And I don't know, maybe Elisa can speak to it about, I gave her a contact I had at JPL so they could get some technical expertise on what is really going on with all this transmission and whatnot. I find it hard to believe. I go to Tucson, I'm driving out in the middle of nowhere, and my cell phone rings all the time. And I don't understand, are all the cactus out there, are those cell towers or something? I don't know. They do it obviously by satellite. I called my daughter this morning in Barcelona. She picked it up just like that. So I'm not sure why all these antennas are all over the city in these neighborhoods. Now, I know they're trying to do the broadband thing, and I think that's the whole fly in the ointment. And that's interesting. I left you a message, Councilman Draymond, about the letter I got from DirecTV telling me that Charter was bankrupt and was going out of business. I should sign up with them to get my broadband services. And I thought, wow, that's something. So I'm not too sure what's all going on here, but definitely we as a city need to get our point to our legislature, to Adam Schiff and everybody in Washington, that this is very important, and the cities have to retain control of just putting these transmitting devices all over the place, like we had that experience with T-Mobile. So I think we need to really follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Hammond, followed by Elise Calfian.
Could Elise speak before me?
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Elise Kalfayan. I appreciate City Attorney Christina Sansone's careful consideration of the FCC call for comments, and I realize that she is very specifically focusing on what the FCC's jurisdiction is with respect to tower siting. However, I feel that since this is an open-ended inquiry that they're making, that actually the council should go ahead and send in comments that are broader in nature and that criticize provisions in the Telecommunications Act of 1996. The Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors resolution says that they will instruct the county's legislative advocates to actively seek and support federal legislation to repeal limitations on state and local authority imposed by the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that infringe upon the authority of local governments to regulate the placement, construction, and modification of telecommunications towers and other personal wireless services, facilities on the basis of the health environmental effects of these facilities, and to submit comments on the national broadband policy in furtherance of these policy goals prior to the June 8, 2009 comment deadline. So the LA County Board of Supervisors is sending sort of the full package criticizing these laws as they exist today to the FCC. I understand that the FCC does not have jurisdiction. I appreciate Ms. Sansone's comments to that regard, but I think that we should actually make these opinions known with the National Broadband Plan as well. Thank you.
Evelyn Hanson. Margaret Hammond, followed by Evelyn Hanson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, and audience. At the meeting last night of the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council, a vote was taken to support Ms. Kalfine and her group's opinion as to the effects and so forth of these towers. And someone was going to be here, but apparently isn't, to present the letter from the Coordinating Council. And this was passed unanimously by, I think there was 15 or 16 members of our homeowners, the Coordinating Council, different homeowners groups. So, and it was quite very unanimous. So our feeling is that there's good reason to take a good look at what's happening and do whatever we need to promote, shall I say, better quality of life in our city through this taking a position about these towers and so forth. Thank you very much.
Evelyn Hanson.
Oh, good evening, Evelyn Hanson. I am going to be real unpopular today. My understanding of the issue that we're dealing with is whether or not citizens, through their legislature, should be able to say whether or not they're going to permit RF transmission devices in their area, primarily out of the concern for health that the RF waves may have on people and animals and bioorganisms. I'm sorry, I just don't think that's an issue that should be politicized. Among my many hats, when I was in ground mobile forces in the Army, I was a satellite communications technician and satellite communications network control engineer. I understand the technology. I used to work with 25,000 watt transmitters, and I have 4 happy, healthy children. One of those children I was pregnant with while I was in that job. I taught satellite communications when I got out. I'm comfortable with the technology. Please, if y'all are going to be passing laws, permit me to let a tower go on my private property. Because when they're outlawed through all the public right-of-ways, they're going to pay big bucks to have it on private property, just like they do on farmland now. I know one woman back in Missouri who gets $8,000 a month for letting a transmitter be on her farm. And I'd love to get that kind of cash income because I'm not afraid of it. I understand it, and I'm not afraid of it. Please don't politicize the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Mr. Weaver, we need a motion on 8C1.
The clarification that I don't think that the resolution that we're talking about crafting is attempting to outlaw these towers. All it's doing is advocating that the city has control over the placement of the towers and the way that they're designed and how they look, and that the companies who want to install them demonstrate a need for them, so that they don't just sort of proliferate with absolutely no control as to how many we would get in any area. So I just want to make that clear for the public.
Okay, I'd like to move 8C1. Is it okay as written with modification?
Well, I think we hear your direction, and it's to prepare comments to the FCC for the mayor's signature. And we're going to return next week also with a resolution that will be directed to Congress, the President. And these FCC comments, by the way, we're going to, once the letter's done, it's going to be to our legislative advocates, to the federal legislators as well, our members of Congress, the senators, and also 1600 Pennsylvania.
And I would second what Ms. Calfian had recommended in terms of making it a broader comment about the original Federal Communications Act and its usurping local authority over regulating these towers, rather than just responding to the broadband section.
The language in the staff report actually reflects that GOAC's position is well taken, and that we will try to weave something in there. We didn't want to take it too far out of the FCC's jurisdiction because we didn't want them to ignore us. But in discussing with Ms. Ansoni, we actually determined that it's probably best to be able to weave some language like that into these comments. And so that's the type, with your concurrence, that will be the letter that we'll prepare for the mayor's signature on the comments on the proposed broadband system. And the resolution, of course, will be far more focused on the whole issue of local control.
Okay.
So I'll move 8C1 with the mayor signing the letter.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members: Raymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
Return to oral communication, and discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision, and the city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation or report.
Herbert Milano, followed by Margaret Hammond.
I have a PowerPoint, if I may. Thank you very much. Mayor Quintero, members of the City Council, and city staff, my name is Herbert Milano. Here's a short presentation on the following topic that is relevant to the budget discussions that you'll be holding and concluding very shortly. This is why multi-year MOUs were high-risk agreements. The MOU is the Memorandum of Understanding, because there were significant warnings of unsustainable economic trends. In January 2006, there was a message that the United States could suffer a recession as a result of failing house prices. That's from the Financial Times. September 2006, there was a survey of 10 cities showing decreases in the annual growth rate of housing in July. That's from Standard & Poor's. In November 2006, we had a yield curve model that shows that 47% of the probability of a recession. That's from the Federal Reserve in San Francisco. In March of 2007, a deeper and prolonged slump may be taking hold for freight and manufacturing, because freight happens to be a leading indicator of future economic activity. In April of 2007, Greenspan was quoted as saying that there was a third chance of a recession in 2007. Bernanke did not say it at that time. He said it afterwards, but he has other reasons to fudge on his prognostications. In August of 2007, the subprime mortgage crisis could act to send the world into a recession, the chief economist from Standard & Poor's. And I'm assuming that maybe the city of Glendale pays for Standard & Poor's reports. What I have here is the Case-Shiller House Price Index of the Los Angeles area going back to 1989. And if anybody wants to be in real estate, you've got to be able to basically look at this kind of data, because it gives you an exact trend of where those prices are going. But towards the tail end of something as speculative as this is right here, and a speculation is nothing more than a natural Ponzi scheme, where most individuals at the tail end basically pay a very heavy price. But towards the end of this particular speculation, the increases began to taper off. and eventually there's a plateau taking place right over here. Well, that's exactly where you made your 4-year agreement. The 4-year agreement with the Glendale Firefighter Association was made in July of 2006. The point is that the city needs to have, significant indicators, leading indicators of where you're going to be, when you're going into a 4-year agreement with any kind of organization. And then, as we take a look with the Glendale Police Officers Association, it took place in the middle of July of 2007. My point is that this is not any kind of admonition on the city manager, because everybody was very heady during that period of time. The things that you picked up on the regular news and on television, for most of you, it was that things were still positive. I was showing its graph very similar to this one to relatives, and by golly, they would not believe it. They still felt that they could still make a lot of money in housing during that period of time. And it is very likely as well that the city manager came to you with concerns. But of course, if you have made a commitment or a promise to the Glendale firefighters or the police, it makes it very tough for you to come back and say, you know what, economy is good, I made my commitments, and we have to go on with it. The point is that the impact of those increases, which were 4%, 5%, 6% year-over-year increases, were not justifiable based on those trends that were available to you, but you did not consider. My suggestion is that going forward, we need to do a couple of things, or the city needs to. We need to correct the over-generous MOUs of 2006 and 2007. You got to correct it because it was based upon, a position in which the city could not sustain those increases, and we feel the shortages today. And the second lesson from this is we can never again have MOUs extending over 2 years. The economy is too volatile. And in the packet that I gave you, handed out earlier, there is another prognostication that started off this year concerning the length of this particular recession. So even though there could be conflicting information coming to you, some economists saying, don't worry about it, don't listen to that, everything's good. What did happen during that period of time is that there were more and more and more articles every single month increasing. The crescendo was going that the economy and the bubble economy that we're under was going to collapse. And so, part of the objectives that we have with regard to the Treasury Department is that we're going to be prudent with our finances when it comes to those investments. I think that we have to take some of that language and use it for the MOUs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Margaret Hammond.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, staff, and the audience here out in TV land. My name is Margaret Hammond, and as I say, I'm a 50-year resident of Glendale, and I am very involved in what happens in my city. Now, last Wednesday evening, the meeting on the tunnel was held in the public library, and it was quite well attended. And really, I found out by talking to people, there were a lot of people there, and a lot of them said they would not have known about the meeting, only that I had spoke about it on the Tuesday night. And I had said that it was the 26th, but that was the meeting for the people in La Cañada, which I wanted to attend. But anyway, there were people from Eagle Rock and Pasadena, and even from La Cañada. Some of them that had attended the meeting the night before, which I understand was very well attended, and they were very vociferous about being against the whole idea of this tunnel because of what the results would be in the traffic. When I spoke to the gentleman that was in charge of this project, shall I say, and he ended up, when I objected to where was the traffic going to come out? Where was it going to come out at the end of that tunnel? It has to come out somewhere. Oh, well, don't worry about it. Yeah, it would be up at the 210, but the idea being, it'll all go east. Well, baloney. Why would all the trucks from Long Beach just go east through that tunnel and get up to the 210? I'm sure that the people over on the east side of where it's coming out haven't thought about that yet, have they? We're thinking about it, and the people in La Cañada, actually, they objected to the 210 going through there. I mean, there are 10 schools right off that freeway. I mean, I know because I own property right there and at Gould, and I know how many schools are there. And do we want that additional truck traffic going through there? I don't think that's very good for the health. I'm hoping that the city will take a stand on this. And then last Thursday, a meeting was held in the city, in the police department, and it was on the elections, and was hosted by city clerk. And it was to ask people what criticisms or objections or whatever, and how they felt about the elections and so forth. Now, I have talked to several people since, and I only found out about 2 hours beforehand about the meeting, and other people were the same way. It was attended by polling people who had worked in the polls and so forth, by 6 or 7 of the candidates, and many other people that were interested. There were other people, but it could have been a larger group. And since I have been talking to people around the city at all the meetings I go to, they felt they would like to have another meeting, and they would like to attend that meeting, and that it should be better publicized when that meeting is going to be held, because they want to be there. And I've attended at least 2 of my other groups, and they were very interested in what was going on. They had some things that they wanted to say about the elections and some of the problems that were there. So I'm hoping that when the next meeting is held, which I understand from the city clerk there is going to be another meeting, that it will be publicized so that more of the public can be there. I think that's really important, that the public, just the same thing with the tunnel. 1 week before it was announced to the public, and everybody said, well, I didn't hear anything about that. If you hadn't spoke up, the people at that meeting, at the tunnel meeting, said if we hadn't heard you on Tuesday night, we would not have known about that meeting. So I really feel it's a good idea. And from what I understand from the gentleman, again, who is in charge, that when that EIR comes out in September, it'll be virtually go. I mean, I was dumbfounded because, everybody kept saying, oh, no, don't worry about it. Well, that was what he said, and unless he's lying, Mr. Weaver, I'd like to get him here. That was what he said to me. It's virtually rolling. And I was dumbfounded when he said that. Now, my last thing is the Great American Cleanup on Saturday morning that was held by the city, Neighborhood Services, and the Clean and Beautiful, and so forth. And all the attendees, the police department helped out. There were many people, many groups. The Kiwanis came and did hot dogs and so forth. And what a great community thing it is, and how many young people, the Boy Scouts, the girls, the kids from Glendale High School. We had people from Arcadia and Pasadena who came to join in. They don't do it in their city, and they wanted to be part of it. So it is a great thing. I mean, really wonderful to see all the neighbors and the children and everybody join in together to get, for our quality of life, to clean up our city. Our city is a beautiful, clean city, but I'm saying they helped to clean it up even more and took pride in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That's the end of oral communication. Mr. Hassan, do we have something that we can do to sort of comment on the EIR as it pertains to Verdugo Hills Country Club?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have actually already written and put on the record that we would like to be informed and be given notice of anything that's available, and we'll follow up to see what the updates are, and I'll make sure that you will have the latest update in your...
Okay. Do you know when is there going to be another hearing for the EIR? Does anyone know when that... Looking for an extension.
As in a scoping meeting? We will find out exactly where they are in terms of CEQA review, and we will make sure that we are definitely participating at every step of the way.
Okay, because as the speakers mentioned, it's just as important to Glendale as it is to the city of L.A. There's no question about it. Any other comments or responses? Mr. Starbird.
Just very quickly, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Milano's comments, a quick response. because he leaves the impression that you and we clearly should have known about the impending recession as a result, adjusted the contracts in 2006. When I read his community commentary, I asked him for the authoritative source that he used to assert that everybody fully well knew in the beginning of 2007 that the recession was upon us, and I remembered the National Association of Business Economists not declaring until December of 2008 that we had been in a recession for about a year. In any case, he submitted to you and to me a number of articles I think, supporting his position. Let me just read a couple of excerpts from those. And this is from the Federal Reserve Board's San Francisco Economic Letter. It says, our review of the evidence, and this was written in November of 2006, our review of the evidence suggests two conclusions. First, recessions appear difficult to predict. Second, while the probability of a recession over the next year may now be somewhat elevated, it does not appear to be nearly as high as the yield curve would suggest. The conclusion of the article is there is reason to be skeptical about the current high estimate of the probability of a recession. Turning quickly to another article here in the dated August 31, 2007, a little over a year later, a Ranka News track. It says, according to David Weiss, chief economist for Standard & Poor's, the subprime mortgage market turmoil is far from over, and he even suggests that the worst might still be to come. However, quote, he says, I think the rest of the economy is still quite buoyant, but there's obviously now a higher risk this could turn into an outright recession. However, Mr. Weiss is also of the opinion the Federal Reserve is adequately equipped to ensure a recession is avoided. And lastly, an excerpt from an article in February 2009, again about a year later, about the economist Rubini, who has now been dubbed sort of a guru of the economy because he purportedly predicted exactly what we entered into back in 2007. The article says, in early 2007, Professor Rubini ominously predicted in his widely read blog that the party would soon be over. He talked about a stock market collapse, a wave of bank failures, up to $2 trillion in losses for U.S. financial institutions, and a severe recession. Fellow economists dismissed him as a crank. Now, we should have listened to him, but fellow economists throughout the nation dismissed him as a crank. But that was when the Dow Jones Industrial Average was at 12,500 points. U.S. home prices were 25% higher. Lehman Brothers was a thriving investment bank, and most of the economics brain trust was calling for a soft landing. Now, I submit that in 2006, we couldn't have been doing any better than the rest of the economists in the United States.
As for Rubini, Abby Joseph Cohen called a recession, I think, 2 back and then missed one, and so whatever. Any other comments? Oh, Mr. Najarian.
Well, quite frankly, I'm a little disappointed at your attitude, Mr. Starbird. And you too, Mr. Quintero. Obviously, what we have in our midst is a clairvoyant who has predicted the downfall and the recession. His charts, his graphs, he told us so. So I would like our Director of Finance and our Treasurer, Mr. Baruchi, to sit down with Mr. Milano and get a clear understanding as to where the economy is going in the next year. And as an added bonus, I would like him to pick out about 10 or 20 stocks that the city could invest in. We could adjust our investment policy, perhaps identify some bonds, because he told us so. And I think we've got to accept him for the economic genius that he is, and, you know, turn lemons into lemonade. We should look forward and see what we can get. Maybe we'll be the one city of all the cities in the country that could cash in on the skill of one of our residents. Well, not one of our residents, but one of our
apartment owners.
How should I describe
neighboring residents,
and get into it. I challenge him to prepare a chart next week and show us exactly where the economy is going, whether he's going to use the Case-Shiller House Price Index or the CPI or any other economic measure for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years out. And then, if he's correct, then he could say he tells us so. But don't look backwards and cherry pick. Now I'm getting negative. I'm sorry, but
I apologize for getting you started.
let me just end it at that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it's bad so the audience knows, as soon as he spoke, he left the council chambers. So I hope he watches the tape here, the following comments.
Well, he knew what I was going to say. He knew those comments, so he didn't have to stay.
All right. Any staff comments? Any more? All
I
right.
think they don't
We're
want to get
going
involved.
to adjourn in
Memory of Dr. Artin Sagarian.
memory of
So
Dr.
moved.
Fair motion. Second.
Second.
We are adjourned.